I love me some firearms. Despite being a progressive, I just think they're cool. The idea of metal and plastic and parts that come together to allow for a complex mechanical movement and function that most people have a trouble even understanding. Many others are afraid to even learn how to understand. There's something that appeals to me about it, right? I love teaching friends that have never shot before how to shoot, just running through the basic rules of firearm safety and running them through like a million different videos of people hurting themselves because they do something stupid while firing guns and telling them, don't do that either. Oh, he did that common mistake, don't do that. Now you know why you don't do that. I love doing it. Like, I have like a whole multi-day process I put my friends through before I get them into guns. And it involves a lot of watching people hurt themselves with guns. Gotta know what the kind of shit you're not supposed to do and exactly what'll happen to you if you do it. You don't want to put someone who's overconfident in their safety skills. You don't want to give them a gun and be like, all right, have fun, when you're teaching them how. So you gotta be careful about that kind of thing. Regardless, though, my main point is I'm really into firearms despite being progressive, and I've encouraged particularly LGBT people as in the recent years to arm themselves because there has never been a more demonized group in modern history than trans people in America. Like right now, the majority of the right are just outright trying to claim every trans person is a potential child predator, and that as a parent, the local trans person in your community is an active threat to your child. So it's not unlikely to consider that there might be some people out there who decide to start taking matters into their own hands when it comes to the trans people that live in their community. And because of that danger, I advise that every trans person in America, should they already be allowed to get a gun, go and get one. Whether it be a shotgun, a pistol, or a rifle, whatever you can afford, get yourself what you can, get some basic training. Hell, you can just go to the range and ask the range officers there, hey, I'm new to shooting. Would you be down to teach me some tips and whatnot? Like the ones watching the range and making sure everyone's shooting safely, if you just ask them that, they'll probably do it. Like, they tend to be pretty nice people. Number one NRA spokesman. Funnily enough, the NRA actually ends up being a rare W type situation in this one. Be clear, by the way, the NRA sucks. Generally speaking, like even as a gun owner, the NRA sucks. There are several other groups that do a better job. I think National Rifle Association of America, the NRAA, I think is, or no, not right. No, it's National NFAA, National Firearms Association of America. That's the good one. That's the one that like everybody in the shooting world has been talking about being better than the NRA as of late. So yeah, regardless, all that aside, I don't want to get too caught in the weeds on this. My main point is that I encourage trans people to arm themselves because owning guns is quite important. It's also fun. And because of that, it would seem that Trump's DOJ is floating the idea of banning gun sales to trans people. A problem that is unfortunately drawn, based on the viewership on these news segments on this story, ridiculously low interest from left-wing audiences. It goes to show that, like, unfortunately, certain progressive policies don't mesh well with the objectives of the left, notably anti-gun policy. Demonizing guns has meant that now that the Trump administration is specifically targeting trans people's rights to bear arms, you've got news media talking about how this administration is going to specifically disarm trans people. Meanwhile, liberals are not really all that outraged because they're down for everyone to be disarmed anyway. What they don't know is that it's going to stop at trans people. Well, it might not stop there. It might extend to a lot of other minority groups, but it's definitely not going to apply to the crazy school shooting, crime committing, hate crime committing white people that do this kind of shit. They're not going to be the ones who get their right to own guns restricted. Like, unfortunately, the liberals are not out here arguing for why this potential ban on Second Amendment rights is bad, and it's because they're just overtly against guns. And this has meant that, unfortunately, a lot of liberals and leftists have left trans people out to dry on this one. I've not seen a lot of discussion talking about how big of a problem this is. And it's kind of, I'd say, a tragedy, because your right to bear arms is unbelievably important. So if you find this topic interesting and you want to hear about it and you want to support the channel, then make sure to like this video, drop a comment down below. If we can get up to 1,000 comments and 1,000 likes and 500 comments, it will be really good for the algorithm. It'll boost the channel out to a lot of new people who've never seen it before and help to grow it. So I hope you guys consider doing so. And with that said, let's hop right into it. DOJ floats banning gun sales to transgender individuals, sparking a Second Amendment rights debate. Whoa, loud.
Following the deadly mass shooting on the campus of a Minneapolis Catholic school, the DOJ is reportedly considering some gun restrictions for transgender individuals.
A DOJ spokesperson told the Daily Wire, quote, individuals within the DOJ are reviewing ways to ensure that mentally ill individuals suffering from gender dysphoria are unable to obtain firearms while they are unstable and unwell.
This is a very clever little game they've played, because the DSM-5 and pretty much all the sources that back up the validity of trans people and the existence of gender dysphoria say it is not a mental illness. In fact, the right's official position, the president's official position on gender dysphoria and transgenderness is that it's not real. And yet, on a legal level, they recognize the existence of gender dysphoria as a medical diagnosis, because recognizing it as such and applying the law as such allows for them to actually bar trans people from owning guns. But rhetorically, they'll never acknowledge that gender dysphoria exists. Only on paper, when they can use its existence and acknowledge its existence to write laws around oppressing trans people. Outside of that, in any debate, on the debate stage, in the campaign ads, when they're having debates or arguments or, anything like that in their YouTube videos, there is no such thing as gender dysphoria. It's only real when they want to ban people with gender dysphoria from owning guns and whatever other future things they plan to ban trans people from being able to do. That's got to be funny, right? Insert thing isn't real until it's time for them to write the laws, and then they acknowledge insert thing is real on paper in said bill writing. I just think that's a fun little showcase of the fact that it's always been gaslighting. They've never been honest about They've never even been honest about why they have a problem with trans people, much less the fact that many of them hid they had a problem with trans people in the first place for a surprisingly long time, considering how fast the internet just 180'd and went full anti-trans over the last year or so.
The move by the DOJ appears to have support from the MAGA base. Alex Marlow, author and host of The Alex Marlow Show, took to X saying, gun ban for trans is a win-win proposition. We get to watch the Democrats explain why trans need AR-15s and the courts uphold gun rights as inalienable.
Funnily enough, most Democrats, if I'm not mistaken, are pro-gun. Like, even among Democrats, like, to be fair, a majority of Democrats are in favor of gun control and gun restrictions. But if you ask the vast majority of Democrats, and I know this because I've looked at the data, guns are one of my hyperfixations, so of course I have. The majority of Democrats don't even believe that any particular type of gun should be fully banned, or that all guns should be banned for everyone, right? Most Democrats just believe it's too easy to get a gun and want it to be harder. In many cases, it's ranging amounts. Also, there are a whole lot of Democrats who don't believe gun control should happen at all. I have several family members who, pretty much everyone in my family at this point is into guns. And everyone in my family is a Democrat. Think about that for a minute. Everyone in my family, going back, God, multiple generations at this point, super into guns now. All of them Democrats. Let's not pretend like the Democrats are solely unanimously opposed to firearms, because I can tell you I'm not one who's opposed to firearms. No one in my family is one who's opposed to firearms. And I know many more growing up in Florida, Democrat voters who are just as gun-loving as any other red-blooded Republican Floridian. Like, depending on what part of the country you're from, left or right, guns are just part of your culture just as much as anybody else's who grew up there. Just how it is.
Or the trans contagion is officially classified as a mental health condition, which it is. Checkmate.
I like that. A mental health condition, when in the writing of the law, they're trying to call it a mental illness, because if someone's mentally ill, then that suggests that they're probably too dangerous to possess a firearm. Meanwhile, a mental health condition, which is exactly what it's called, not exactly scary. Like, these people have a mental health condition. Should we really allow them to own guns? It's like, well, what's their condition? Are they dangerous? Meanwhile, if you call it mentally ill, then people immediately assume, well, of course, yeah, you can't let them be armed. Very clever with that. Very clever with that. He's changing the wording, even in his little, checkmate. He literally put checkmate at the end of his tweet. Like, checkmate liberals, literally.
But the proposal unsurprisingly sparked outrage on the left. Ed Krastenstein writes on X, "Where are all the Second Amendment people now? Does it only apply to some people?" Meantime, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says he plans to call a special session of the legislature to tackle gun violence. Walz said on Tuesday, quote, "I am not going to allow anyone to try and make the case that the United States is unique in either mental health issues or other things. The things that make America unique in terms of shootings is we just have more guns and the wrong kinds of guns that are on the streets."
Giga cringe. Unfortunately, most Democrat politicians will just lie about guns. I'm not even joking, just straight up will lie. And it's because they do have to, pander to what is the popular position. The Democrats have been pigeonholed into being if you're anti-gun straight up, you vote Democrat. That is why Republicans can get away with the claiming that all Democrats hate guns and that the Democrats just want to disarm everybody, yada, 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 right? You know what's ironic? The most commonly passed and most effective gun control laws are usually passed on a state level, not a federal level, so there's that. But they're more often than not passed by Republicans. Do you guys know that? One of the most substantial gun control laws that has had an actual effect and a significant drop in gun crime after its passing was one passed by Ron DeSantis. In Florida, a couple years ago, Ron DeSantis signed a bill making it illegal to purchase a firearm, or not a firearm, a pistol, until you are 21 years old. Because in just about every state, and especially Florida, the vast majority of gun deaths happened because of 3 reasons, and all primarily to one demographic. 18 to 20-year-olds who had just in 1 or 2 years ago gotten their first gun and either shot themselves on accident, committed suicide with their firearm, or, usually with gang affiliations, used it to commit crime. And the vast majority of the time, it is an 18 to 20-year-old with a handgun. So Ron DeSantis signed a law banning the sale of handguns to people under 21 and required a 5-day waiting period on handgun purchases, regardless of your age. So when you go to get yours, you have to sign the paperwork, pay, and get it all set up, and then you leave, come back 5 days later, walk in, finish signing the paperwork, give them money, and you walk out with your gun. This is all because of Ron DeSantis. I'm not trying to talk up Ron DeSantis as a good guy here, but what I'm pointing out is within his own state, there was no political pressure on him, really, besides to handle the crime problem. And he looked at the crime problem, he saw what was causing it definitively on a data level, which was there are just too many young 20s to late teens guys going out and buying guns, handguns, and using them to shoot themselves on accident or on purpose, or others as part of not organized, but semi-organized crime. So he legislated around that specifically, and Florida saw a significant drop in gun crime in the state. So, unfortunately though, Democrats are not really on that train. Funnily enough, Gavin Newsom is an exception. Rare Gavin Newsom W, he actually tends to do the same types of policies you see a lot of Republicans do around guns, because he recognizes where the deaths are actually coming from and where the problem actually is. However, like, to be very clear here, Democrats tend to focus on the scary guns, the black guns. Conservatives are racist against black people. Liberals are racist against black guns, okay? They tend to be really scared at, like, the rifles, the like, any AR-15. Like, the AR-15 is, like, the face of the devil. Meanwhile, like, 80% of semi-auto rifles are AR-15s, so if you ban them, you've banned basically all semi-auto rifles, which Washington has done, and it's very unpopular policy. Really sucks. And of course, you can't actually ban the ownership of these guns. That's distinctly stated not to be allowed in the Constitution. What the Constitution says you can do is ban the sale and transfer. Well, at least doesn't specifically say you can't ban it, which is why all these gun control policies that have been able to pass over the years specify that you can no longer buy or sell a certain gun, not that you can no longer possess it. Because as far as I'm aware, I don't think any "you're not allowed to possess this thing you already owned" laws have been able to go into effect, considering seizure of your firearms, like, just because of what the firearm is, a lot harder thing to pull off with the Second Amendment protecting you and all. But Democrats really want to ban all of the semi-auto rifles. They want semi-auto rifles completely banned from America. That's what they mean when they say assault weapon. So it could be anything from, like, a Mini 14 to an AR-15, any, like, AR-15 clone or platform modification. Obviously, all they want to be legal that has a long barrel is stuff that you have to manually chamber each round with a bolt for. No, I don't want that. That's what Tim Walz wants. Tim Walz has stated as much. Joe Biden stated as much too, as did Kamala Harris. It is the official Democrat position to ban all semi-auto rifles federally. Ban the sale and purchase. Of course, they cannot ban the possession. So all the Nazis and far-right militias out there that have, like, hundreds and hundreds of high-capacity rifles and magazines, they get to keep all their shit. They get to stay strapped. It's that, like, as guns get more popular with new generations that tend to be more progressive, it's these more progressive people that will not be able to get access to firearms, while all the far-right, crazy, Nazi, violent psychos have arsenals. You don't want let's really hope the Democrats drop the gun stuff in the near future. It is a losing issue on many levels.
All right, so this is obviously a contentious issue.
Yeah.
I take Alex Marlow's point, which is that it seemed unlikely to me that this would pass legal muster because transgenderism used to be called transsexualism or gender dysphoria, and it was classified in the DSM-5 as a mental illness. It no longer is. So it would be difficult for the DOJ to, I think, make the case that there would be a broad blanket ban on anyone who has gender dysphoria from owning a firearm. But the positive side of that for Republicans, let's say they're playing 4D chess here.
To be very clear, it's already illegal to own a firearm. If you have a history of mental illness, they ask you if you have a history of mental illness on the form. If you lie and say you don't to acquire a firearm and you get found out, you've committed a felony, and you will go to prison. You'll become a felon and lose your right to vote. You will lose your right to own guns if you had it in the first place, and your life will get a lot harder. So, like, hilariously, the idea that this is to protect people, like, to protect from allowing people who are mentally ill from getting guns, like, it's already against the law for people who are mentally ill to get guns. It's just people's medical records are sealed, so there's only so much you can do to run a background check on someone's mental health. You kind of have to take them at their word for it, because there's literally, as far as I know, no legal option you could pursue to try and find out if someone is telling the truth that they have no history of mental illness. So, hilariously, you could legitimately, like, any trans person, if they did pass this, could just lie and say they're not trans when they go to buy a gun. Yes, it would be a felony. I assure you many other Americans have committed that same felony in the past, because mental illness is very common in America, and there are a lot more guns than people. You do the math. A lot of Americans have clearly committed that felony. So yeah, I don't believe that the government has the means to apply this rule if they passed it. But what I do think is important about this is to show that they are actively trying to do the thing. They are actively trying to disarm trans people, because I think at this point we can all agree their plan is to kill all the trans people. If you're going to exterminate a group of people in a country, it's pretty obvious that's your plan when your first move is to disarm all of them specifically. Especially when in the past your party has always been the, unapologetically and uncompromisingly pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment party. When you suddenly start saying, except for these people, it's pretty obvious it's because you want to disarm them and exterminate them.
Which I'm not sure if that's the case or not, would be if the court says that they can't do that, that would be a major challenge to basically all red flag laws, which say that if somebody else says you're crazy, basically, then you don't get to own a firearm anymore. So I think regardless of what happens, it would be probably a win for the GOP.
Well, that's the law Canada has. It's possible they could go that route. It's possible Republicans could go and pass one of the most significant pieces of anti-gun legislation in American history. That honestly, if Republicans want to start pushing anti-gun policy, I welcome them to do it. It is one of the biggest losing issues the Democrats put themselves on the wrong side of. If the Republicans want to switch themselves to the wrong side of the gun issue, and the Democrats want to switch over to the right side of the gun issue, I welcome that fully, especially because the Republicans currently, or I guess up until now, held the more popular position on guns among Americans. I would like to see them lose that benefit. Like, every American gun owner, not every, but a lot of American gun owners reluctantly vote Republican simply because guns are their wedge issue. And they've been convinced if they let a Democrat win, they're losing their gun rights. And they can't allow that. That is the reason solely, the sole reason they go to the polls and vote Republican, is their guns.
And that's kind of the problem. I think when I saw this school shooting, and I think about the conversation, I know we're not on the same day, so I'm glad that this is not the conversation the day of or the next day, but the fact that it becomes like this political chess game, like you referenced, like playing the biggest game to get what you want. It's like kids died, you know what I mean? So I think that, all school shootings are horrible. We should condemn the criminal involved, but to blanketly try to point out or isolate one group. I mean, even if we look at history, and I was just trying...
It's true, yes, the NRA is the rare W here. They came out to say no to the trans gun ban. They said they will not compromise on any group having their Second Amendment rights. Now, granted, I'm sure it's a massive virtue signal. And the NRA is still an evil corporation. They're still evil among political action groups on the right. Among like the gun world, like they're like even among like advocates for gun ownership rights, the NRA isn't even all that good at what they do. They're just the most known for doing it. The NRA kind of sucks, and if you go to like a range, you'll hear a lot of gun owners there complaining about the NRA and how much it sucks. It's not considered the favorite like political group of either party, frankly.
Trying to make sure, like this shooter was a 23-year-old transgender woman, but when we look at like top shooting, that was a white racist person. When we look at the days,
there have been 4 trans shooters so far in American history, as of now, if I'm not mistaken. It might be 5. It's under 10. There have been under 10, definitely under 7. Closer to like 4 or 5 total trans shooters in American history so far. As you can imagine, like there have been thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of white, straight, cis male shooters. The only reason we're making a big conversation about the identity of these shooters with such a massively low, disproportionately low representation is because they found, once they can find a plurality of anecdotes, by that I mean more than 2, then they can start saying, look, here's an example, here's an example, here's an example, and many more. Once you can list 3 actual examples, then you can add and many more. And that could mean 1 more, 2 more, 100 more, 1,000,000 more, who knows? But it's a very effective rhetorical strategy the right uses. Now that it's happened a few times, they're slowly gaslighting people through subtle, omissive rhetoric that this is a more common thing than it is. So just keep that in mind.
Spa shootings in Atlanta, that was a white racist person. When we look at the Walmart shooter in 2019, that was a white nationalist. When we look at the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2015, in Robert Bauer in Pittsburgh, that was somebody who was white. So I don't think that we should ever say, oh, this type of person is doing this type of act. Somebody who's been radicalized should go to jail or this. And I don't think that if we're deciding that it is a mental health issue, maybe being radicalized is also a mental health issue. And so then we should prosecute people in that way. I don't think this is even an argument or a rabbit hole we should go around when we believe that the Second Amendment should exist, which I do because I have an entire side of my family from Texas who own guns as heirlooms, who actually hunt. But I think to get into this
honestly, everyone's always talking about, what about people who hunt? What about people who want to defend themselves? Let's be real. Let's just be completely real. Let's not go there. 99% of people in America who own guns want to own guns because shooting them is fun. If you don't know what I mean when I say that, then you probably haven't shot a gun before. And when you do, and you go from sucking at shooting to being a little better by the end of the day or the end of your time at the range, you see your improvement because you look at your first target and how mangled it is from all the discordant bullet holes you put in it. And then you see your final target and how much tighter your grouping is, how much more precise your shots are. You feel yourself getting better at holding the gun, getting better at controlling it. You're getting you go from having to look at the gun for a second, scan it, find the thing, and remember what you were meant to do next to load it, unload it, and ready it to fire, to just knowing what to do, and you don't even really have to look. You're just doing it while your eyes are on the target downrange. And you realize you're getting competent with this thing that for many people when they first start shooting, they were afraid of. 90% of people I've introduced to shooting were afraid of guns when they started, really scared. Shot their first few rounds and the fear started to melt away and the excitement started to build up. And by the end of the day, they're a gun autist, like I am now. They're super into it again, or all of a sudden, but it always starts as fear of the firearm. And I actually get scared if the person isn't afraid to get into guns, because that's actually worrying, that they're too overconfident and they might end up doing something stupid. But just going to the range and practicing sport shooting, teaching your friends how to shoot who've never shot before and seeing their reaction to firing a gun for the first time, so many things that have nothing to do with self-defense or, revolting against the government or hunting or really ending any lives. Guns are absolutely tools whose primary purpose is to end lives, don't get me wrong, of animals or people. But 90% of people, 90% of the time, 99% of the time even, are shooting paper targets and having fun doing it. Because it is fun. And that is fun. Fundamentally, most people react to hearing about banning guns the same way most gamers here would react to the idea of banning, a certain type of video game or a certain type of video game hardware for running them. If America wanted to ban PlayStation, right? Even if there was a good reason to ban PlayStation, there'd be a lot of gamers out there that are what the fuck? I just use my PlayStation to chill out and play video games. What do you mean people are using it to do some awful thing? I'm not one of those people. Why should I not be allowed to play my PlayStation? What the fuck? It's fun. I like it. And then people, when you say that, they'll respond, if we're going to make it equivalent, so you're having fun on your PlayStation is more important than protecting people? And then, you'll get it turned around on you and you'll be made into a bad guy. I hate arguing about gun rights as a gun owner because it's one of the few issues where, either I feel like people on my side of the issue are really stupid and arguing, positions I agree with poorly, or I feel like people that I generally agree with are directly attacking my right to own something that I am into owning, that being firearms. And so I've had people in my chat before who are usually Europeans saying, I just wish America would ban all your rights to own guns. You all need to be disarmed already. And it's you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. You're probably some British or Australian who's never shot a gun before. It's just so frustrating. It always triggers the fuck out of me. So for a little bit of a decompression, check this thing out. I want one of these so bad. It's called a Salun SR410. It is a revolver shotgun chambered in 410 shells. Look at this. It goes so hard. I want this so bad. Thankfully, I don't see any laws passing that would ban the sale and purchase of these anytime soon. Aussies have guns, that's true, but not in the same way Americans do. Not saying Aussies don't know guns, period. It's more that, like, usually when I'm talking about guns and I say, like, all guns should not be banned, someone comes in to start yelling that all guns should be banned, and it's almost always a European, more often than not, an Australian. Like, like 9 out of 10 times when someone's in my chat saying I should just shut up and call for all guns in America to be banned, period, it's an Australian. I don't know why, but, like, Australians just fucking hate guns, dude. Anyway. With all that said, if y'all enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below. It really does help to boost the channel and the algorithm and support me a ton. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already, so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload. Follow my social medias linked down below, particularly my fan Discord, as that is the main hub of my fan base and community. In fact, every Friday I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, or movie nights there, including tonight, so if you don't want to miss anything, then make sure you join. We're going to be watching the new South Park after stream in the Discord, so don't miss it. It's going to be a good time. You won't regret it if you join. And finally, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you all so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.